I think it's interesting that different forms of fiction have their own interpretation of the god of thunder, Thor himself, with all of them reclaiming similarities to the myth, but also adding their own flair or differences. I want to analyze the version of Thor from the Record of Ragnarok anime and their interpretation on his might, and the anime is fairly new, might I add. So all these estimations of his power are probably at the lowest part before the show gets farther along and stuff of that such. Keep that in mind, but off rip, he's already insanely strong, having statements off rip that state his weapon that he always wields, Mjolnir, in this universe can shatter the entirety of Earth. But oh, my bad, am I going too fast? Let's analyze them, shall we? See, this is a manga where the gods and the mortals got to face. That's the whole point, right? And since it's pretty much confirmed, even if you're the strongest human in all the three kingdoms, there's no way you stand a chance against a god, even like Thor. So you're probably wondering, what the heck is this anime even doing if the humans don't stand a chance? What kind of manga is this? Well, it's not that simple. Humans on their own don't stand a chance unless they have a Valkyrie cheat weapon, divine weapon, one could say, to help them be able to harm the gods. That's why humans even stand a chance against the gods. They have a cheat code weapon. I mean, they would need this in order to even face somebody like Thor. There's like 13 gods on this side, and there's 13 humans on this side, and they're dueling, the mightiest of each. And then we can get a little lore, and they tell you a little bit about the story here. This will pretty much determine the fate if mankind deserves to live, or do they deserve to get wiped out. Right off the gate, before I even really get this video started, it's pretty much stated in the lore that he's the strongest war god of the Norse mythology. It doesn't take rocket science to know that just off gate, you know he has superhuman physical attributes because the hammer he's wielding just freaking looks big. It's bigger than his whole body. And if you're wondering how he grips this Mjolnir, this is how he does it. Let me stop. And this is his main weapon he has to swing around and use during combat. Well, right out of the gate, you already see that he has superhuman attributes. But other than just physical stuff, he's versatile. Like, one can say he has blast power, like electricity manipulation, common Thor stuff. No matter which universe we're talking about, they got to give Thor electricity manipulation or lightning manipulation, right? I mean, one can even say he has blast power because of a lightning projection. He was able to produce so much lightning to where it technically filled up the entire arena with electricity. And this is a pretty big arena. I would also like to mention, one could say he could technically produce heat. Like when it awakens, for example, starts melting stuff, implied for it to be really hot. Common Thor trope, no matter which version of him we're talking about, is him throwing Mjolnir. And even if you move out of the way of it, it'll come back to him or hit you from behind and you not expect it. So one could say you don't want to wrestle with him when it comes to his muscle strength, but you also don't want to stay too far back because he just blast you. Along with this stuff, his gear, let's talk about it. His hammer has an awakened state. Like, as you can see, this is how it normally looks, and this is how it looks when it's awakened. He's getting serious when you see this. Then he has gloves that he wears along with wielding Mjolnir, which is stated to be capable of withstanding any attack. So one could say this kind of helps his durability because they're durable as heck. Obviously, these gloves not being able to break was an exaggeration a bit, but Thor doesn't really need them, you know. See, there was a misconception that he wore these gloves so Thor can get protected from Mjolnir's power, but in fact, it was actually the other way around. Thor actually wore these gloves. They was there to protect Mjolnir from the weight of Thor's swing, so they're implying he swings too hard for the hammer itself. So yeah, his physicals are quite crazy. And just to give you an idea of what these gloves are like, when he throws them, look what they do to the ground. So they're not normal gloves, making a crater. Yeah, gloves. This is interesting because humans in this universe are pretty strong, and it's confirmed even the strongest humans, without some sort of Valkyrie help, are not strong enough to fight somebody like Thor, implying that Thor could probably lift this with ease as well, since this human can. This human can lift this without any type of enhancements as of yet. He can lift big boulders like this in just raw physicals. So it's clear evidence that Thor could replicate this feat as well, because they talk about no matter how hard a human trains in this world, even though humans in this world can get ridiculously strong enough to lift stuff like this, they still can't be compared to the gods when it comes to raw strength. Like, look at the size of these boulders. I mean, this adds up with his strength, being able to swing this big old hammer around like nothing, you know? Let's talk about how hard this version of Thor can swing this doggone huge hammer. For one, he can swing it hard enough. He can easily crush skulls that even if he doesn't make direct impact with the ground or something, the shockwave or collateral of these powerful beings clashing, a human that has a crazy divine weapon, of course, the impact can crater the ground itself. In this occasion, we see him obliterate a demon. He destroyed an army of Deotin entirely by himself, to give you an idea of his power. Despite them being way larger than himself, size don't mean nothing. So just because you're the size of a building doesn't mean he won't topple you with his hits, especially proven here. One can say part of the reason why he can hit hard is because he can kind of hit fast too. Like, these mega panels go from right to left, right? Like, you see the attack is done, but it continues to affect the being even after the hammer is gone out of sight to do more damage to him because of his striking power. He has superhuman durability, obviously, just like how hard he can hit. But when he was harmed here, He was shocked, sure, but it didn't really intimidate him all that much. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, the only reason humans can even match these gods is because of these divine weapons. Even though they have these divine weapons, it isn't an equalizer because his weapon, Mjolnir, can clash with these divine weapons, along with Thor putting his muscle behind it as well. His Mjolnir can still withstand the clash between these two titanic weapons. It's plenty of occasions in this fight showing how his Mjolnir can withstand these strikes. You pretty much get the idea. Like, strength in numbers isn't a thing because even if it's this many that pull up, you're just one big target for Thor, especially in this particular scan. His hammer is actually awakened. Thor simply uses his hammer and smashes, makes a huge shockwave to wipe out everybody within the vicinity that easily. Like, that's just light work. Like, you know how the hammer has its base form and an awakened state where it looks like it's a literal heart? Let's talk about this not being awakened for a second. This is before the manga even introduced that it can awaken and everything. They pretty much talk about how the Mjolnir itself can part the seas and the lands. Notice how they use the words seas, like more than one sea. So it's implying he can not only just part one sea, but his attack would stretch to a whole nother sea or 3 seas or 4 seas. You know, it's just something like that. And if you can part more than one sea, that means your area of effect would technically be able to wipe out an entire continent, because there's seas that take up more space than continents themselves. And if his swing of his Mjolnir can affect that much of a radius, that would imply him wiping out cities would be like a literal joke to his swings. Even wiping out multiple countries is technically a joke too. If they say he can part multiple seas and the lands, they say. Not to mention with how much power he can swing with. In the anime, they straight up stated his Mjolnir can shatter continents. So, you know, he can definitely shatter continents. Leveling countries is technically easy, considering the hammer is stated to be capable of shattering the earth. I don't think this is an exaggeration when you consider the myth and how myth can do crazy stuff. Even though this isn't myth Thor, when you hear them narrate stuff like that, when they're gods, it kind of makes sense. And there's nothing really to contradict it, really. Like, we know planets have different sizes, and it was stated he can destroy the Earth, meaning that he should easily be able to destroy different smaller planetoids, like the moon, for one, should be easy. If it's stated he can shatter the Earth itself, destroying a moon should be easy, right? He can definitely destroy the Earth too, especially when Thor decides to go all out. Whatever he can do previously, the hammer can do better now that it's awakened. Like, you guys remember the myth stuff about him taking on a serpent that's the size of the planet itself. You know, this is the move in this universe's lore or narrative. They talk about this, the move he used against the giant Earth-sized serpent. He only used this once other than this particular battle on record of Ragnarok. And this blow buried a giant planet-sized snake because freaking Odin himself confirms it. A snake that wraps around the entire planet Earth, he may go to sleep with this hammer hit when his hammer's awakened, of course, when he takes his gloves off. I would have personally loved to see a visual image of him actually knocking out a giant planet-sized snake in this anime's animation or something. But yeah, we know he did it in his lore narrative. He did this attack against this human that had this super weapon, divine weapon, and messed up his body doing so. And then to finish him off in this final clash, these two weapons clash and messes up this very strong opponent that had a divine weapon. Thor took it on out. Planet busting seems to not be much of a big deal in this universe so far, especially when there's other gods on this side of the bracket that just casually states in their like narration or announcement, oh, he can destroy the world on a whim, you know, stuff like that, just easy stuff. Who's to say he couldn't destroy an even larger planet like Jupiter or something? The limits of these beings are really unknown. The big question is, could he destroy the planet without the hammer? I think the answer is pretty simple. The answer being yes, obviously, because the entire point of Thor wearing these gloves was to protect the hammer itself from Thor's might. It's only until the hammer awakens like this to where it can actually handle the might of Thor, swinging it, the weight of his power in general. You know what I mean? With his bare fist, he should be able to tremble, destroy the moon, or even destroy the earth with his punches alone. It just makes sense. The whole point of these gloves was to protect the hammer from Thor's might itself. And already it can already sink continents and level the earth. You know what I mean? It's interesting that they keep naming him the strongest of the Norse, even though Odin's clearly in this same arena. But you gotta respect Thor no matter what, though. All this is probably just really low balls, really, on how much power they can really produce. Because this anime is kind of still in its infancy. We just know as a bare minimum, his swings can destroy the earth itself. We might find out extra lore in the future about these characters being a lot stronger, but for now, they're probably above planet busting, but we don't know to what extent, if that makes sense. But before I get going, everybody, I gotta say thanks for the donations, everybody. Respect Thor and Record of Ragnarok. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.